Hello guys, this is again a pre-recorded video of my discussion on chapter 3 entitled Artists and Artisans. So before I start, let me remind you again not to share this video and the video link to any social media accounts. So let me present to you first the learning outcomes in this chapter. Learning outcomes are the following. You will be able to identify the medium in various forms of art, visual, auditory, and combined arts. Define an artist or artisan's medium and technique. Define the role of managers, curators, buyers, collectors, art dealers in the art world. And differentiate between artist and artisan approach or technique toward a particular medium. Understand the artisan's work is an end in itself and the artist's work is a means to an end. And last but not the least, identify national and Gamaba artists' notable works and their contribution to society. So first thing is, we will be discussing the difference between an artist and an artisan. So first is an artist. When we say an artist, they are an art practitioner, produces or creates indirectly functional arts with aesthetic value. So there is an aesthetic value. So when we say aesthetic value, it is beautiful, and at the same time, one of the major factors why artists are making an art is because it is through entertainment, and at the same time it shows aesthetic value. When we say aesthetic value, the beauty of that particular artwork, it is also based on the imagination of an artist. So most of the artists, they are just imagining certain subject in order to make an artwork. So if there are ideas being pop up in their minds, then they may start making an art. So that is one of the characteristic of an artist. Another one, when we say artist, a creative individual who uses his or her imagination and skills to communicate in an art form. So the factor in knowing an artist is it the works of an artist focuses on their creativity through their imagination. That is their way on communicating in an artwork or in an art form. And then artists looks to many sources for inspiration. So when we say artist class, they are using their inspirations, their imaginations in making a certain artwork. For example, as shown in the picture, an example of artists are sculptors, painters, those who are fond of making drawings or sketches, dancers, singers. Those are examples of artists. Wherein another example of artist class is those who compose song composers, wherein all of their experiences, all of the things that they imagine, lahat ng nagpa-pop up sa utak nila is yun yung ginagamit nila in order for them to create an artwork. Okay, so ulitin ko class, when we say art, it does not mean that it focuses only on drawing and painting, but it also focuses on different types of artworks. For example, composed song, composed poem, those are also form of artwork being created or being used by an artist to communicate using an art form or an artwork. Next, let's proceed on what is artisan. So the difference between artisan and artist is that when we say artisan, they are craftsmen, okay? And then they produces directly functional and decorative arts. So when we will differentiate the two, when we say artist kasi, it focuses on a functional art, but at the same time, aesthetic value. May aesthetic value siya. Okay? Pero dito naman sa artisan, the same din with artists that they are creating functional arts, but the difference is they focuses on decorative arts. So mostly, kapag sinabing artisan, it focuses on the meeting of our basic needs as a person. So what are our basic needs? So these are our needs in our daily living. For example, shelter, gumagawa ng bahay, gumagawa ng mga materyales para sa bahay. Another one is food. Okay? Artisan din yung nagpo-produce nun. For example, chef, okay, culinary artist, artisan, culinary artisans. And then, the clothes that we wear, artisans yung mga nagre-create nun, especially meeting the basic needs of every people. So, when we say basic needs class, these are the things or the materials that we use in our daily living, not or only to survive, but for us to make our household chores or yung mga gawahing bahay natin na mas mapabilis. And at the same time, decorative art siya to beautify. Okay? Not only the function, but then meron din siyang value and decorative designs. Next is, their work are useful, relevant, and essential in our everyday life. So as I've said a while back, class, ginagamit natin siya in our daily living. Unlike doon sa mga ginagamit ng artist. Sa ginagawa ng mga artist, it is not totally used on our daily living. Unlike sa artisan na ginagamit natin siya pang araw-araw. Another one is a physical worker. A physical worker who makes objects with his or her hands using his skill, experience, and ability. So, physical worker siya. So, as you can see, class, we have here some pictures. We have welder, okay, yung naghahapi ng mga tela natin, okay. Nag-aayos ng mga sirang gamit sa loob ng bahay, okay. So, sila yung mga examples natin ng artisans. So, those people who are making or creating decorative art and making materials being used on our daily living. Now, let's proceed on medium and okay, so now let's proceed on technique. So what is technique? Technique is the artist's ability and knowledge or technical know-how in manipulating the medium. So when we say technique, class, it is the ability of an artist in manipulating the medium. So ito yung ginagamit ng artist para magamit niya yung mga mediums na meron siya. Okay, so every artist, every artisans have their unique technique in making an art. So lahat tayo may unique na technique sa paggawa. For example, there are some artists that uses the technique of using light colors on his or her paintings. Meron din yung technique na more on ang ginagamit is dark colors. So that is an example of technique, class. So every artist and artisans have a unique technique in making an artwork. Okay? Now let's proceed on the next discussion on the graphic organizer. So when we say graphic organizer or story map, this is a visual and graphic display that depicts the relationships among facts, terms, and or ideas within a learning subject. So it shows the four important things in a story map, especially in an artist or in an artisan. So, in making a graphic organizer, actually in art, example, this is an example of a graphic organizer. So, this is a graphic organizer or story map of Apo Wangod. So, he was known as the oldest mambabatok in the Philippines. So, nakilala siya doon sa pagtatattoo. Okay? Now, let's discuss what are the important things about Apo Wang-od. But then, let me discuss to you what are the things included in this graphic organizer. So, we have here first this process. Okay, process. What is process? So, when we say process, this is the process used by Apo Wang-od on his artwork. So, ito yung ginagamit niyang proseso or ginagawa niyang proseso sa paggagawa niya ng tattoo doon sa mga ina-applyan niya or nagpapatattoo sa kanya. So, the process being used by Apo Wang-od was tapping into the skin through a torn end of a calamansi or pomelo tree. So, the medium na ginamit, okay, while on the medium naman, as I've said a while back, is the materials being used by an artist. So, what is the medium being used by Apo Wang-od? She used ink, mixture of charcoal, and water, and the body as human canvas. So, therefore, class, the medium used by Apo Wang-od is ink. And the ink was created with a mixture of charcoal and water. And the second medium was the body. Okay, the body or body parts, any body parts of the person being applied nung tattoo na ginagawa ni Apo Wang-od as the human canvas. Okay, so yun yung canvas niya. So unlike doon sa mga painters natin, na ang ginagamit nila is yung talagang canvas for painting. So for her, she uses the body of a human or the human body. So, balikan natin process. Of course, with the use of that medium, okay, gumamit siya ng process na yon. And the process is, after the mixture of charcoal and water, at meron na tayong body as human canvas, meron na tayo ng process. On the process, she will tap the thorn of a calamansi or pomelo tree on the skin of that certain person. Kasi nga sabi ko kanina, she uses human body as her canvas. Okay? Now let's proceed on the technique. On the technique, we have here this so-called batok as the ancient term. Okay? It is an ancient term being used, okay, which means hand tapping. Okay? So, ang ibig sabihin ng batok is hand tapping. So, that was the technique being used by Apo Wang-od in her art. And lastly, persons involved. When we say persons involved, these are the persons being part of the artwork being created by Apo Wang-od. So, the persons involved, of course, is the grandniece of Apo Wang-od named Grace Palikas. Okay? Kasi siya yung trinin ni Apo Wang-od sa pagpa-practice nung kanyang art na ginagawa to preserve the culture of the Filipinos. And the tourists who are visiting her para magkaroon ng tattoo, and pilgrims and trekkers. So these are the persons involved in the artwork of Apo Wang-od. Okay? She was known as one of the national artists of the Philippines. So later on class, I will be giving you an activity wherein you need to choose one Filipino artist or artisans that you will be studying or magre-research kayo, and you need to create a graphic organizer of that certain artist or artisans na napili ninyo later on. Okay, that will be your activity. But then, I will be uploading the activity after this discussion. Okay, so let's proceed on the art market. So how about art market? Art market is an economic ecosystem that relies not only on supply and demand, but also on the fabrication of a work's predicted future monetary or cultural value. So when we say art market class, it does not focus only on supply and demand. So when we say supply, yung pag-produce ng product, and the demand is yung pagbili ng product. It also focuses on cultural value. So one of the reasons why some of us tend to buy an art is because of the cultural value of that artwork. Okay, so who are the players in the art market? So the players in the art market are the following. We have the curator, art buyer, art dealer, and private collection. So let's discuss first what is a curator. So curator, manage or overseer, okay? Keeper of a cultural heritage institution, content specialist, charged with an institution's collections, and a curator should be organized, passionate, knowledgeable, adept at multitasking, and proficient at writing. So when we say curator class, mostly we see a curator inside a museum. Okay? So sila yung mga keeper or manager ng mga museums natin para ma-maintain yung kaayusan and at the same time to educate those visitors or students who visit that certain museum or private collection. Okay? So one of the major work of curators is of course he or she must be a content specialist. When we say content specialist, dapat alam niya kung ano yung mga basic informations, fundamental informations of those materials that you may see in the museum. Kasi sila yung mag-i-introduce sa'yo, ano nga ba yung patungkol doon sa artwork na yon? Ano yung history ng artwork na yon? Okay, that is one of the important job or work of a curator. You must be knowledgeable of the things and basic informations regarding dun sa mga artworks na nasa loob. And then, another one, a curator should be organized, especially on the records that na meron inside the museum, passionate in his or her work, as I've said a while back, knowledgeable, and adept at multitasking, of course, kasi nga since madami yung mga visitors, dapat kaya niyang pagsabay-sabayin yung mga trabaho niya. And proficient at writing. Of course, he or she needs to know everything about the things inside that museum. Kaya dapat meron siyang tinatagong records. Okay? So that is a curator. So who are those persons na pwedeng maging curator? So dapat hindi lang basta-basta yung pwedeng maging curator. So it depends on the museum or private collection kung saan siya magtatrabaho or mag-work. So for example, if the museum focuses on Filipino arts, okay, gawang Pilipino yung mga arts na nasa museum na yon. Of course, one of the things na dapat maging requirement as a curator is he or she studies Philippine art, okay, Philippine art, kung hindi naman, focuses on the Philippine history, okay, yun yung mga basic na dapat na requirement as a curator. Dapat akma yung kanyang natapos na course doon sa papasukan niyang museum or private collection. Okay? Next is the art buyer. When we say art buyer, professional who is knowledgeable in an art. So, dapat professional siya and he or she knows everything about that certain artwork na gusto niyang bilhin. Scouts talents for an advertising agency seeking to employ an art director and finds and purchases artwork for a client. So, it does not mean na art buyer is sa kanya mismo yung binibili niyang art. But then, mostly, yung mga art buyers natin was being hired, for example, being hired of museums or private collectors na binabayaran in order to make or to buy, okay, to purchase an artwork. Since they are professionals, sila yung makakaalam ano ba yung mga materials na dapat bilhin. Okay? Because there are professional art buyers. Okay? We may also include curator as art buyer kasi nga meron silang knowledge or they are knowledgeable of all the things na kinakailangan inside that particular museum. Okay? Next is art dealer. What is the difference between an art dealer and an art buyer? So when we say art dealer class, these are persons or a company that buys and sells works of art. So when we will differentiate buyer and art dealer, the differences is the art buyer are plain buyers only. But for art dealers, they are buying and selling, okay, the product that they bought. Okay, for example, bumili sila ng isang artwork or isang painting. Okay? So, ang mangyayari doon, after buying that, sa cheaper price, mas cheaper yung pagkakabili nila, they will sell it ng mas mataas yung price. Okay? That is an art dealer. Understand the business side of the art world, and they keep up with the trends in the market. They figure out how much they should pay for a piece. So, as I've said a while back, professional din sila na art dealer. But then, mas mahal na yung benta nila kapag binenta nila yung art na binili nila. So, another example of art dealer class is yung mga nagpapabidding ng mga materials nila or mga artworks nila na binibili from other artists or artisans. And then, let's proceed on private collection. For private collection naman class, personal owned. It is personal owned collection or works. Okay, personal owned or not owned by the institution but is on loan from an individual or organization. The source is usually from an art collector. So, mostly art collectors yung nandito sa private collection. Okay? For example, there are people who are fan of collecting paintings or kung hindi naman mga porcelain came from different countries. Those are example of private collection. So some of us may be called as art collectors, especially when we are fond of collecting photographs or kung hindi naman collecting signatures from our idols, okay, art, or kung hindi naman collecting original copy of yung mga CDs na binebenta nung mga bagong movies, kanon, okay. So, yun, kung hindi magazines, okay, art collectors. Okay, now let's proceed on the steps in the creative process. So, according to Robert Fritz, creating is a skill that can be learned and developed. We can learn to create by creating. Okay, so let's begin with the first step. We have here conceive the result you want to create. Creation starts at the end. We need a vision we want to realize. So when we say conceive the result, you upon creating a certain artwork, dapat alam mo na kung ano yung magiging resulta niya at the end. Okay? So dapat i-imagine mo na dapat ganito yung itsura nung gagawin kong artwork. Okay? You must visualize the end. Okay? You must know what will be the image of that art na gagawin mo later on. Okay? Next is Know what currently exists. Know what currently exists. Awareness of what is being done in a certain area. So, what is trending? Okay? So, ibig sabihin nun, kung ano yung trending, dapat yun yung ginagamit mo as one of the ideas na ginagamit mo doon sa iyong artwork. For example, trending in terms of the way how um, we dress. Okay? So, the trending nowadays is yung pagsuot ng mga crop top, for example. Trending siya. Okay? So, maybe, as a fashion designer, you will not create those clothes na dati pang na hindi naman na nauuso ngayon. So, para maengganyo yung mga buyers mo, yung mga buyers noong gagawin mong damit, since you are a fashion designer, dapat tinitingnan mo what is trending, ano yung nauuso. Okay? Huwag mong gagamitin yung mga hindi na uso kasi baka hindi pansinin ng mga buyers mo. Okay? So, yun yung isa, yung pangalawang step. Next is take actions. Okay? Take actions, you have to do something to make it real. Though sometimes there will be criticisms. Of course, hindi maiiwasan na meron tayong mga critics in making an artwork. But then, we need to be optimistic in terms of making an art. So, walang mangyayari if you will not take an action. Okay? So, baka mamaya iniisip mo lang na I would like to start a business katulad ng fashion designing, but then natatakot ka naman. Of course, you cannot create an artwork if you will just stand and will not take an action. Okay? Next is learn the rhythms of the creative process. All of the forces in play are useful. So you must know everything about making an art. Ano ba yung trend? Ano ba yung kailangan kong gawin? Ano ba yung nauuso ngayon? Okay? Ano ba yung hindi ko dapat gamitin? Okay, so yun yung rhythms. And last but not the least, create momentum. Every new creation gives you fresh thoughts and knowledge of our own creative process. Okay, so create momentum. We must think of an original art or original technique or medium to be used in our artwork. So, dapat kung yung una nating ginawa is maganda, yung susunod na gagawin natin is mas maganda. Okay? So now let's proceed on the stages in the creative process. So we have here first germination, or also known as idea. This is the moment with a lot of energy coming out of the future you envision. Planting the seeds of your creation, the most important and difficult thing in this stage is, of course, choosing. Okay? In germination class, this is the time wherein we need to imagine, we need to think of a certain idea, unique idea, or characteristic of that certain artwork that we want to develop. So, this is the hardest part wherein you need to choose what will be the best thing, what will be the best technique that I need to use, what will be the best medium, process, and product na gusto kong mabuo at the end. So, that is germination class. You must think of what is perfect. Hindi yung sakto lang. Dapat iniisip mo na or visualize mo na kung ano yung maganda para dun sa artwork na gagawin mo. And next thing is assimilation. When we say assimilation, this is also a crucial step. Why? Because you will internalize and incorporate the idea you want to create. So, your creation grows from inside and begins to manifest in everything you do, consciously or unconsciously. So, hindi mo mararamdaman na meron na palang pagbabago doon sa art na nagagawa mo. But then, this is very crucial because you just need to incorporate not only the things that you want to make, but the things related to others' work. So, kailangan hindi ka lang nagfo-focus doon sa comfort zone mo. Dapat nag-i-incorporate ka rin doon sa mga artwork na gawa ng ibang artist and artisans. But it does not mean naman that you need to copy-paste all the things that they included in the artwork that they created. So, ang gagawin mo lang, for example, yung sinabi ko nga kanina, you need to know what is the trend. Dapat alam mo ano ba yung nauuso, ano ba yung trending ngayong time na to. Para hindi naman maging etchapwera yung artwork na gagawin mo later on kasi nga hindi sumasabay sa uso. Okay? Next is, we have here the completion. For the completion, of course, this is the time to finish your project, to give it the final shape before you present it to the audience. So, therefore, in completion class, dapat kompleto na siya, maayos na siya, okay? And then, makikita mo na dapat lahat noong beauty within that artwork na ginawa mo. So, this will be the finished finished product of that creation or that artwork. For example, sa mga may business na pagkain, okay, or food business. For example, it does not focuses only on the taste of that food. Sa panahon natin ngayon, dapat Instagram friendly na din yung appearance ng mga foods natin para maengganyo yung mga buyers natin to visit again the restaurant that we have or the business that we have. So, kaya ang ginagawa ng mga may business na restaurants is dapat hindi lang masarap yung product na ino-offer nila sa mga buyers nila or customers nila, but of course, dapat maganda rin yung kanyang appearance or yung plating niya is maayos din. Kasi nga, in our time today, dapat, di ba, minsan inuuna na natin, we tend to take a picture first of our food before eating it. Okay? So, that is the completion. So, dapat maganda yung plating at the same time, maganda yung packaging. Okay? So, that is the stages in the creative process. The germination, assimilation, and the completion. Okay? So, that is the end of my discussion on Chapter 3, Artists and Artisans. So, if you have questions later on class, please do not hesitate to ask. Just comment below or send a message on our group chat, and I assure you that all the questions regarding this topic will be answered. So, I'll be posting the activity on I will be posting all the announcements regarding on the activity and on the next pre-recorded video of our discussion. So please class if you have questions, please just send me a message on our Google group chat. Okay? Thank you for listening. Hope you understand the lesson today.